Even his closest friends were unaware of the sinister secret that Clarence Williams III concealed. His mother disappeared without a trace when he was 6 months old. Then came the early years, when they lived above a funeral home and saw corpses every day. It wasn't the worst part, though. FBI agents arrived on his set in 1995 with murder threats following one gruesome film performance. Hollywood was truly afraid of him, and the sad reality about why someone wanted him killed is revealed. On August 21, 1939, Clarence Williams III was born in Harlem. August air hung heavily over the city on that scorching day. Family tales hardly ever addressed his mother. No name in the census, no photo in the albums, just silence. After Clarence turned 6 months old, no one saw her, according to a cousin who spoke to the New York Times in 2021. By 1943, the family had ceased funding the Western Union tracer because she had disappeared so thoroughly. Clarence Clay Williams, Jr., his father, played the clarinet. However, the big band gigs were dwindling by the time his son was born. The swing was waning. Smaller groups were less expensive. Additionally, Clay was always moving, pursuing jobs that hardly covered his living expenses. From Newark to Buffalo, he spent the majority of the year away. Thus, Clay's parents were left with the infant. Later on, Clarence compared his mother to a photograph that was blown away in a windstorm. When he got well known, he used this tactic to prevent reporters from asking too many questions. But something surprising was hidden beneath all that loss. Jazz royalty were his grandparents. His grandpa, Clarence Williams, wrote, "If I do, I'm tainting nobody's business. And baby, would you please come home?" In London, his grandmother, Ava Taylor, performed blues in crowded theaters and vaudeville halls. His grandfather's music earned roughly $40,000 annually in the 1930s, which is more than $800 now. They occupied a 13-room Queen's brownstone. Legends such as Sidney Basher and Bessie Smith visited. A teenage Fatswer once spent a month living on their dean, yet they never showed off their wealth. Simple envelopes were used to hold royalty checks. The neighbors were unaware. Clarence was able to attend the American Negro Theater in Harlem to learn acting because of that quiet money. One family narrative stuck out even though everyone else assumed he was just another child from a dangerous neighborhood. Helen was Clarence's great-aunt. She played the organ during Sunday worship at the chapel of Rikers Island Prison. She carried hymn books and peppermints concealed in her organ seat every week. However, inmates had covertly placed codeine cough medication and Vicks inhalers inside those benches. She was unaware. The men feigned illness. The fraud continued until the cargo was eventually examined by a warden in 1954. Helen was taken aback. She returned to apologize, but she was never charged. Clarence accompanied her. He was 14 years old. He claimed that the journey was the first time he had ever comprehended what it meant to be simultaneously innocent and guilty. That thought stayed with him and eventually appeared in nearly every part he portrayed. Clarence became accustomed to sights that most children never saw because he lived upstairs from the funeral house. Walking past stitched, silent bodies under white sheets was part of the garbage removal process. Back then, Harlem was a violent place. Every week, 3 murder victims passed through its mortuary. Before he learnt how to use the metro, he witnessed stab wounds. He saw 8 small coffins arranged in a line following a fire in 1950. That he never forgot. He claimed that the picture ingrained itself in his mind like a noir movie. Blood never made him flinch again. Not on stage, not in school. In the 1960s, casting directors remarked that his gaze appeared radioactive. They referred to it as method acting. However, he informed co-star Peggy Lipton that it was because he had learned the faces of guys whose mothers refused to claim them. His breakthrough performance in Slow Dance on the Killing Ground and his TV role as Link Hayes, the first black police officer on prime time who didn't smile to fit in, were both impacted by that weight. Clarence had no intention of becoming an actor. He was only seeking for $20 at the age of 18. In July 1957, when Harlem was hot and noisy, he went to the YMCA to ask his sister for a loan. Upstairs, she operated the telephones. A cast was practicing beneath a single stage light when he wandered into the theater in the basement. The director yelled at him to read a script. Yes, he did. He was spot on. He was on stage that evening. James Earl Jones and Cicely Tyson were among the attendees. His hustle came to an end that one instant, and a 6-decade career began. The theater still owing him $20 plus interest. He used to joke. He had been running numbers before to it. He worked as a runner for the Underground Lottery in Harlem between the ages of 15 to 17. He would write down wagers, gather pennies, and commit the full 143rd to Lennox route to memory. He would swallow the ink and eat the slips if the police arrived. It was risky. In the summer of 1956, 2 companions were shot because they owed money. However, he learned how people move and speak from that street existence. When he took the stage, observers complimented the rhythm it gave him. When the Army called in 1958, his aspirations of becoming a theater star were put on hold. He trained as a paratrooper after joining the 100 Honest Airborne. The Screaming Eagles, or Company C, 56th Infantry, were the same battalion that swung into Normandy during World War II. Clarence completed 32 leaps, 3 of which were done in full gear at night. He received a Pathfinder badge and his wings. He claimed that whether he was delivering a line or pulling a parachute rope, the Army taught him how to breathe, how to wait, and how to strike. After being released in February 1960, he immediately hitched a ride back to New York. He was 25 years old and in the spotlight on Broadway by 1964. Slow Dance on the Killing Ground earned him a Tony Award nomination. He portrayed Randall, a dark and erratic vagrant. His final monologue, according to critics, was so powerful that you could hear the neon humming in the quiet. Despite not winning, he was the youngest black actor to receive a nomination in that category. Hollywood took notice, yet he turned down large offers. He was offered a show by NBC at $2,500 each episode. He was offered a $500,000 film deal by Paramount. A sitcom part was offered by ABC. He rejected everything. Instead, he went to the stage. plays didn't care that he only made $125 a week. He stated that he would like to play kings for peanuts as opposed to sidekicks for gold. The mod team then arrived. In 1968, Aaron Spelling met more than 350 persons in his quest to find the ideal actor to play Link Hayes. The network was looking for a clean cut. However, everything changed when Clarence Williams entered the room for the third time. He wore a wool cap pulled low over his developing afro, army boots, and eyes that seemed to have seen it all. He didn't grin. He didn't play it safe. After watching him execute a slow dance on the killing field, Bill Cosby silently phoned Spelling. Listen to what he said. If you want lightning on film, that's your guy. Williams entered Paramount for the last audition on March 11, 1968, and instead of merely reading the lines, he fell silent. Spelling reported that the temperature in the room increased by 10. ABC went into a panic. Spelling threatened to cancel the entire show if Williams wasn't chosen, despite their belief that fans in the South wouldn't accept a black man in that role. And it was successful. On September 24, 1968, 26 million people watched the debut of The Mod Squad. The first black actor to play the lead in a prime-time police drama was Clarence Williams III. Link had to witness a police officer stealing heroin in the Season 2 episode, A Hint of Darkness. Williams talked to the crew off-camera about the Harlem police officers he had witnessed as a child. He claimed that certain people arrived every Friday, took money-filled envelopes, grinned the same manner, and left. They once broke into a pool hall for $40, and the proprietor was imprisoned the next week for being $5 short. Williams urged the writers to include the entire bribe in the show, against the director's advice to save the story for interviews. ABC intended to cut the action short and simply hint at what transpired. Williams vowed to leave. Spelling supported him when he remarked, "If the kids in Watts know this happens, and we pretend it doesn't, they'll never trust us or you." On November 11, 1969, the scene was broadcast. In addition to receiving 200 complaints from police unions, the show received its first Edgar Award nomination for depicting actual wrongdoing. It was tight behind the scenes. "One black, one white, one blonde" was the show's well-known tagline. However, the three of them did not always get along. Peggy Lipton's representative expressed dissatisfaction about the fact that 8 of the 12 main advertisements in 1970 featured close-ups of Williams alone. In 1973, when he was intoxicated, Michael Cole confessed that he detested Clarence's ability to steal a scene silently. On June 2, 1971, Cole pushed Williams during a take during filming, sending him hurtling over a pier railing. For 2 hours, the shooting ceased. Later, Lipton claimed that in order to prevent confrontations, they had to arrange photo shoots at different times, but the tension worked. There was genuine chemistry. That fall, ratings increased by 12%. Cole claimed years later that it was fear rather than hate. Clarence possessed gravitational pull, he claimed. Lucille Ball became one of Williams's closest mentors, but not many people are aware of this. At Desilu, their offices were adjacent to one another. She began inviting him to her Tuesday practices after noticing how powerful he was on stage. She showed him how to deal with censors, strike punchlines, and let silence speak for itself. Lucy wrote a memo to the network president in 1970 when ABC attempted to force Williams to shave his afro. Hair does not a hoodlum make. Audiences adore it. She signed it, Lucy, and applied red lipstick for a kiss. Overnight, the concept vanished. Williams claimed that he could still hear her shrill voice asking him to hold off until the audience leaned forward when he starred in Night and Day on Broadway years later. Every birthday, she sent him roses. On April 26, 1989, the day of her death, her final bouquet arrived. The letter simply read, "Happy birthday, kid. Love, Lucy." In 1963, Williams became friends with actress Gloria Foster. She was 30 and he was 24. They were cast in The Cool World and would quote rhinoceros while riding the train late at night. After years of small apartments and silent routines, they transitioned from rehearsal spaces to each other's arms. They married in front of a Clark County court in November 1967 after traveling 655 miles to Las Vegas when Williams was teaching at Brandeis. Two college students who had to return quickly for a sociology test served as their witnesses. Rehearsals were never even stopped. After the Mod Squad debuted 9 months later, they unexpectedly became well known in two places at once. Williams never talked about children. However, his daughter Hamie Phillips was listed as one of his heirs in his obituary upon his death in 2021. Born in 1974, she was adopted following a protracted custody dispute with a family friend. Her name was never used by the media. In homage to Gloria, she attended school as Jamie Foster. At the 1984 Purple Rain premiere, a photographer once attempted to take a picture of them. She never once made an appearance in any of Williams' shows, but he walked in front of the camera and declared, "This child does not work for your magazine." He also declined offers of reality TV deals based on their lives. She received $2.8 million from his inheritance after his death, which included proceeds from 46 movies and 118 TV shows. Silent loyalty, silent wealth. Williams persuaded producers to allow Foster to appear as a guest star on The Mod Squad in 1969. She portrayed a blind jazz musician on the run from murderers. The episode, which debuted on February 18, 1969, received a Nielsen rating of 27.2, surpassing the laugh of Rowan and Martin. The audience adored it. More than 3,000 letters were received. One sequence, in which they held hands for a bit too long, caused some controversy among the censors on whether it was too intense for prime time. The couple's home was completely dark for 48 hours in order to get ready. Williams used touch to lead her so she could taste blindness. In March 1969, the story appeared in TV Guide. Foster was one of just 5 actors asked to reprise the part in the sequel the following year. In 1984, their marriage came to an end. Williams was filming Purple Rain in Minneapolis. Foster and Having Our Say were on tour. They filed for divorce in Los Angeles on September 4. No lawyers squabbling over money, no fighting. By switching ISBN numbers, they each retained half of their 2,400 books. They also included a promise to protect one another from tabloids. 3 weeks later, they were seated next to each other on stage for a benefit show. Their holiday phone calls gained notoriety in the theater industry. According to Cicely Tyson, their conversations lasted longer than some Broadway productions. On August 21, 1939, Clarence Williams III was born in Harlem. He was well known throughout the world as Link from the Mod Squad by the time he was 34. However, everything changed when the show was canceled in 1973. Hollywood knocked on his door and offered him parts in the newest, most popular genre, black exploitation movies. These were quick, ostentatious, loaded with criminals and guns, and profitable. Because they were inexpensive to produce and simple to market, studios adored them. Clarence, however, rejected them all. He didn't simply turn down a few parts. He turned them all down. Between 1973 and 1976, there were at least 8 offers, not just 1 or 2. He was urged to think again by his agent. For each picture, the producers made an upfront offer of $25,000 to $30,000. In the first year alone, that could have amounted to about $250,000. This amounts to over $1,160 in today's currency. Clarence, however, had no interest in money. According to him, those positions were stereotypes in leather jackets that were hollow and one-dimensional. He desired to be an artist rather than a consumer. Thus, he left, and Hollywood left him as well. Clarence accepted $150 theatrical checks while other performers purchased homes. He slept in budget hotels, performed on little venues, and made, at most, $550 per week. He sacrificed millions over the following 10 years. Refusing those films cost him between $2 million and $3 million, according to experts. But he didn't regret it. He thought that was the proper course of action. However, his choice was not universally praised. He was referred to as haughty by certain actors. He abandoned the community, they said. Many black actors got their first big break in black exploitation movies. Roles, no matter how imperfect, were preferable to none at all. Clarence understood their words. He even said that they believed I was insane. But he did not waver. Being a pistol in a trench coat was not what he wanted. He aspired to be authentic, and he demonstrated it. He made a comeback to Broadway in 1979, 6 years after he left the film industry. He performed night and day opposite Dame Maggie Smith on November 26, while standing beneath the dazzling lights of the amphitheater. He portrayed President Magiba, a multifaceted leader from a fledgling African country. The stereotype was not true. Critics were reminded of Clarence's significance by this genuine portrayal, which was profound, perceptive, and human. He wasn't a villain from a cartoon. In stillness, he was something more powerful, something dangerous. Not everyone missed that silence. Prince, then 25 years old, was getting ready to shoot Purple Rain in 1983. He noticed something in Clarence's eyes while watching vintage Mod Squad reruns. Anger, strength, and suffering. That guy can break me with his eyes. Hire him, Prince advised, and they did, with one caveat: Clarence consented. He would use actual pain. He delved into his own past, recalling incidents of a violent uncle in 1958 and police sirens in Harlem. He then locked himself in a motel in Minneapolis. Just music, no contact, no calls. Eerie, quiet, and late nights. The crew was rendered speechless when the basement piano scene was filmed on November 27, 1983. Prince started crying because of how powerful one take was. The piano keys were broken by another. No one was able to turn away, but Clarence never raised his voice. Then he received the call that permanently reconnected with him. Director John Frankenheimer emailed him a copy of 52 Pickup on January 14, 1985, along with the words, "Bobby Shy, Clarence or Nobody." The following day, Clarence was flying to Los Angeles. The allotted time for the audition was 30 minutes. It continued for 3 hours. Together, they created Bobby Shy, a murderer who spoke in rhymes like a perverted nursery rhyme and never screamed or trembled. Clarence rehearsed each line to a metronome's precise beat of 72 beats per minute, which is equivalent to the heart's resting rate. Reporters were informed by O. Frankenheimer that Shy was death in velvet gloves. In one episode, Clarence used a gigantic teddy bear to make up a threat. The audiences adored it. Critics described him as frightening. Only 5 were made by the movie, but his performance turned into a legend. That wasn't the end of Frankenheimer. He cast Clarence in fur films from 1986 to 2000. Clarence was never merely a fictional figure. He was a formidable presence. He portrayed a butler in George Wallace who said little but conveyed everything with a glance. He turned into a security-uniformed ghost in Reindeer Games, haunting the wealthy and reckless. Frankenheimer claimed that Clarence's silhouette carried Harlem, and the plot changed when he appeared on television. He turned into a mirror that made white America examine itself. Over the course of 14 years and 4 films, Clarence's total screen time was less than 50 minutes. He did, however, leave marks. He continued to challenge others. He made an undercover appearance as Detective Gerald Carver in 1992. Scripture was heavily emphasized in the 14 minutes that he was on air. Every day, Clarence read the book of Jeremiah. He arrived around 5:00 a.m. church services. He would recite poetry prior to scenes on site. Working with him was like being Shakespeare's understudy, according to Lawrence Fishburne. Just before cocking a shotgun, Clarence included a phrase from Psalm 94:23 in a potent moment. Despite not being in the script, it was included in the movie and had a powerful impact. Tales from the Hood followed. Clarence portrayed Mr. Sims, the director of a funeral home with secrets in each coffin, in 1995. However, the most terrifying scenes weren't prearranged. They originated in Clarence's early years. He recalled a corpse's fingernails being cleaned of grime by an undertaker. He recalled that his grandma hesitated before making contact with the organ's keys. Silence, he recalled. He made use of it all. The movie still feels authentic because of this. The man who knew what death sounded like was the reason, not the monsters. The film was initially a failure. People discovered it on tape at midnight showing, but it only made $1.8 million and disappeared from theaters. It gradually turned into a cult favorite. Jordan Peele referred to Clarence's performance as evidence that horror films may convey a deeper message. Professors of film now show Tales from the Hood after Get Out. What used to seem insignificant is now viewed as a beginning point. And in the center of it is Clarence, whistling a funeral march while grinning and holding a cigar. He couldn't be separated from the role by everyone. 9 letters were sent to Universal Studios between July and September 1995. The mortician was threatened with being buried again. White powder was found within 3 packages. The FBI became involved, but it was plaster dust. A case was opened. In 1997, they even appeared on the Hoodlum set to caution Clarence. He chuckled. Reindeer Games, a winter thriller, was released in theaters in 2000. He said, "If you confuse me with Mr. Sims, maybe you need a mortician more than I do." Ben Affleck and Charlize Theron were among its stars, but Clarence Williams III opened the movie and stealthily stole the show. He performed a brutal card game scenario as a weary prisoner, although his actions weren't even part of the script. Every take was improvised by him. Ben Affleck had to make quick adjustments to stay up with him. The entire crew erupted in cheers when the last shot was completed. The DVD commentary still captures the moment. Williams subsequently made a joke about how Affleck's ascent in Hollywood demonstrated how invisible privilege feels for the person who wears it. Newspapers carried that phrase, even though it was never included in the official press transcripts. People listened to Williams when he spoke. That little performance served as a reminder to everyone that Clarence didn't require a lot of screen time to make an impression. Even though the film didn't set any new records, he received a humorous nomination from TV Land in 2004. Unexpectedly, it was for his hair, more precisely his 1960s afro. Initially, it appeared to be a joke, yet that style had earlier caused a stir. His afro became a weekly prime-time TV image while he was back on the Mod Squad. That was important. Prior to the 1970s natural hair trend, it existed. Teen magazines published how-to manuals for copying it. The number of clients requesting Lynx's appearance increased for Harlem barbers. Those stories are still preserved by the New York Public Library. The honor was not given to him. The feathered flip of Farrah Fawcett took it. It didn't matter, though. His hair was already symbolic. It was more than just fashion. It represented arrogance, defiance, and a fresh kind of cool that declared, "This is who I am." Sociologists today claim that his hair paved the way for others. People like Solange Knowles and Angela Davis restored the power of textured hair. It all began with a daringly honest look. Williams accomplished something unexpected in 2005. He appeared in American Dragon, Jake Long, a Disney animated series. 1,000-year-old dragon in human form, Counselor Andom, was voiced by him. This was unfamiliar for someone who typically portrayed serious characters in grim dramas. He didn't take it lightly, though. He had a complete backstory in mind when he entered those voice recordings. He even requested that lines that sounded too contemporary be changed by the authors. He desired for Andom to feel old. He added lengthy pauses and slowed down the characters speaking. It was successful. Saturday morning viewers heard more than just a dragon. The weight of 1,000 years weighed on them. About its debut season, the show drew about 2.3 million viewers. That indicated that more people heard Clarence's voice there than in any of his previous endeavors since the Mod Squad became viral. A whole new generation has recently been reached by him, and they continue to share his moments on the internet. Quotes and presents titled Counselor Wisdom. That animation breathed new life into his legend. Then came his last major motion picture part in 2013. It was in The Butler, a film by Lee Daniels. A young Cecile Gaines was mentored by Clarence's character, Maynard, an elderly and composed hotel butler. He wasn't in the film much, only 2 scenes, but they mattered. This time, he wasn't loud, he wasn't intense. He was steady, warm, intelligent. Critics observed the shift. After years of playing aggressive, often angry guys, here was a quiet tower of strength. Daniels even modified the production schedule for him so the 73-year-old actor wouldn't have to withstand the New Orleans heat. "It was the least we could do for a legend," he remarked. When the movie came out in August, it ruled the box office. For 3 straight weeks, it kept the top rank. In the end, it made $177 million off a $30 million expenditure. Clarence retired from acting 5 years later. That part was his goodbye, and it was magnificent. He had a reputation, not just for acting, but for how seriously he took it. On every set, he knew his lines word for word. He expected others to do the same. In the 1993 film Sugar Hill, he once called out a co-star for botch-up street lingo. "Did you come to say lines or to convey the truth?" That one sentence shocked the cast. Wesley Snipes begged for more rehearsal time after that. In the Mod Squad, he stayed in character for 12 hours straight. No breaks, no food. The team understood not to miss their cues. There were whispers of fines if they did. He was intense, yet he wasn't nasty. In fact, they admired it. Directors said he saved them time. He shaved hours off filming schedules. Every moment he worked was exact. That's why a cinematographer once called him a human slate clap. When Clarence locked in, the whole team locked in too. In the end, he kept something very private. He had colon cancer, but no one knew, not even the folks hiring him. He didn't speak about it publicly. No interviews, no statements. He kept auditioning even in 2019. That indicates he has previously gone through chemotherapy while still showing up for work. He didn't want the world to see him unwell. He wanted them to remember him in full strength, the way Chadwick Boseman later chose to do. Both made the same silent choice. Doctors believe many actors stay silent because of how punitive insurance policies may be. If word gets out, contracts can be pulled, and Clarence wanted to keep earning. Those residuals now aid his daughter. That silence also came from something deeper. Research demonstrates that many black guys don't communicate about disease. There's mistrust in the system and a fear of looking weak. His last time on set was in 2017. A few months ago, doctors had identified a tumor. The people on Twin Peaks who worked with him didn't know either. Some of them signed NDAs. Later, they spoke out, shared the truth. All of it tracked back to one silent decision. He wanted to keep working. He died on June 4, 2021. He was 81. The cause was colon cancer. He passed away at home in Los Angeles. After the news broke, something happened. People from every part of the industry shared stories. Filmmakers, actors, musicians. They described a man who was generous, polite, bright, and also extremely private. Rusty Cundiff claimed his craft and absolute coolness were unequaled. Lenny Kravitz said he saw his own face in Clarence while he was growing up. Peyton Reed said Williams was gentle and soulful on set, something he never expected from someone who portrayed so many difficult parts. Even Prince's estate offered condolences, congratulating him for the strong, frightening performance he gave as the singer's father in Purple Rain. NPR's obituary claimed that underneath all those serious characteristics was someone who made people feel secure. He wasn't only a tough guy on screen. Off screen, he was a quiet force who boosted people.